What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me for this episode are the usual suspects, Callum Wiggins
Hello.
and Robert DeFelice.
Hey, hey.
So, if you can't tell by the title and all the other kind of stuff going along with this, what we were talking about for this edition is a rundown of all the results that happened during the 2019 WWE Superstar Shakeup, which was, if for anybody who doesn't know, the time of the year where they decide to trade people throughout the rosters on Raw and SmackDown and NXT and 205 Live, and not NXT UK, but, that's okay. So a couple new people went over to Monday Night Raw, a couple new people went over to SmackDown Live, and even though the fact that they've advertised this multiple times and done this in the past as being a 2-day event, it might not still be over because we still have two people that are kind of up in the air and a lot of question marks and stuff. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be breaking down the results themselves and then our assessment of everything. What feuds are we interested in seeing going forward? What mistakes do we think that WWE made? What are the question marks that we do have? And, anything else that we want to kind of break down. So just to get this out of the way, just for the people that need the actual results breakdown, I'm just going to read through the list of the trades that have happened so far, at the very least, as far as 4:30 on Wednesday the 17th. And that's going to be our context here. So, new to Monday Night Raw are The Miz, Ricochet, Aleister Black, the War Raiders, which we're going to put a pin in that and talk about that a little bit, Cedric Alexander, Andrade with Zelina Vega, Rey Mysterio, the Usos, Naomi, EC3, Eric Young, Lacey Evans, and AJ Styles. And new to SmackDown Live are Finn Balor with the Intercontinental Championship. Again, we're going to put a pin in that. Lars Sullivan has been confirmed, even though he popped up on Raw, and they treated him like a Raw superstar. It's just another one of those fucking things. Ember Moon, Bayley, Kairi Sane, Buddy Murphy, Elias, Roman Reigns, and then 4 other people, and then 2 other people that they just were like, oh yeah, we forgot about these, we're going to announce them on Twitter. So a lot of people might not be aware of this, but Mickie James, Liv Morgan, Apollo Crews, Chad Gable, and Heavy Machinery are all also now on SmackDown. First question I have for you guys, without getting into deeper discussion yet, how are you feeling right now about the Superstar Shakeup? Do you feel like it's a massive success, a massive failure, somewhere in between?
I think that there's definitely a few moves that can be really good. I specifically on the SmackDown side, I think they came out the overall losers, but they got a few picks that will really help shape their brand going forward.
That's quite an interesting assessment because I thought SmackDown absolutely dominated this shake-up in terms of the talent that they brought over compared to what's left on Raw. It just feels... I mean, I can't say with any sort of certainty that either side is really benefiting hugely because you can't really speculate in terms of what WWE does with people going forward. But just based on talent and abilities, I think SmackDown have the far better, well-rounded roster right now.
That's funny because earlier today I had posted an article on Bleacher Report with anybody if they want to read it, which was, and I signed up for this over a month ago, it was Raw versus SmackDown, who won the Superstar Shakeup. And going into this, I had already pre-written a little bit that said, like, well, Raw completely dominated. And then after this, I started to have to backtrack that on a little bit. And when push came to shove, I ended up picking that Raw has the better tag team division, a much worse women's division, and only slightly potentially better for the men's singles division. And I kind of feel like writing up that article made me go from, oh my god, this was a complete disaster, to actually, I kind of dig it. And I think that they have a lot of potential here going forward. So I'm in a good, optimistic kind of headspace when it comes to this year. Oddly enough, even though there's still some major flaws, and we'll get to those, but I'm not feeling as worried as I was even after Monday Night Raw. When Raw happened, I was like, uh-oh. I'm feeling a little bit better now. But here's one of the topics I want to dive into first things first, is there are two massive glaring errors happening right now. One of them being they forgot about Nikki Cross. She's still not listed as being a part of either roster. They just didn't announce it. I tweeted the WWE and I tweeted at Nikki Cross saying, like, hey, what's going on? And, it's been hours and hours and nothing's happened about that. So either they don't know what they're doing with Nikki Cross and they're hoping that people just kind of ignore it, which they aren't, or there's some kind of oversight that's going on where they completely forgot about her, and that kind of sucks. But what do you guys think? And I mean, I assume that she's on SmackDown because her husband's on SmackDown, Killian Dane. But it's like, she can make a big difference. She could be a heel or a face on Raw or SmackDown. That's big.
So I think she'd be better off on Raw, because I do agree with what you guys were saying about Raw having a weaker women's division. But I think that, again, because her husband's on SmackDown, and she put out this YouTube video, like, saying how comfortable she feels in front of the WWE Universe. So I think she's definitely a babyface. I just don't think that they know where they want to put her yet. And let's not forget, Sanity was completely obliterated in this shakeup. I mean, Alexander Wolf flat out quit. He said goodbye WWE on Twitter. Eric Young went to Raw. And, Killian Dane, for all intents and purposes, might as well be in the same boat as Nikki Cross. Like, they're employed, they're technically on SmackDown, but they're not anywhere, really.
Well, I mean, that's another thing, is they split up Sanity, and Nikki Cross, we're going to talk about that Sanity stuff and the split up with all that too, but Nikki Cross isn't beholden to anything now, because there is no Sanity.
There never is in WWE.
Pure insanity. That sums up WWE.
Well, the thing I was thinking with Nikki Cross, and maybe obviously just wild speculation, and it's maybe giving them too much credit, but I would have thought if it was an oversight, they would have fixed it by now.
Yeah, because you would think that with the whole stupid random, oh, and by the way, these 4 people, and then about 15 minutes later, oh, and also Otis and Tucker, that's them kind of covering their ass for being like, fuck, we didn't announce these, which... that alone, come on, WWE. Like, we know that you don't think that SmackDown means as much, but you're heading into a big fucking deal with Fox. Can you at least try to act like you give a shit about SmackDown? And it sucks for these people because, like, Mickie James deserves better than that, and Nikki Cross deserves better than to be completely forgotten about, and you would think that if it was something that they would have just gone, fuck, we forgot that we didn't put a graphic up, which they really should have, that they would have at least tweeted out something similar, because it doesn't take any effort to tweet, oh yeah, Nikki Cross is also on SmackDown. Or, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, well, that's the point. I'm thinking that if it was an oversight, they would have at least put out a graphic fine. I mean, it's been over a day at this point. Well, around about that time anyway.
Over a day if she's on Raw, and...
yeah.
half a day if it's been SmackDown.
But you would have thought by that point they would have had enough time to say, oh, we've forgotten about her, unless they've just completely forgotten that she's employed.
Mm-hmm.
But it leads you to think that maybe there's some sort of plan associated with it. Like maybe she's going to be, because obviously she's crazy, she's just going to jump between brands and just fight whoever's available.
I like it. But with Nikki Cross, I think they kind of just forgot about her overall, because she was building towards this thing with Alexa at WrestleMania where she was supposed to like crash Alexa's party and how, oh, you're the host and oh, it's gonna be so much fun, Alexa, you're gonna get to play with me, and they never did anything with it, so I think they're just at a loss with Nikki Cross right now.
Loss for Cross.
Well,
this is not a surprise either, because WWE frequently does this, where, and I don't understand this philosophy, and for the life of me, it drives me fucking crazy, and it's making my life a living hell when it comes to my work and stuff, but they do this shit where they go through these lull periods where nothing happens, and then they get into a section of the year like WrestleMania where they just go, yeah, let's just keep changing shit. Let's just go with the momentum and add more events and change things and drop storylines that we've built up. And like they had Bobby Roode and Chad Gable turn heel to be like, we're going to do this in this division. And then they're like, never mind, you're not a fucking tag team anymore. And we're going to set up these women's tag titles and we're going to wait for months to do it because we need to have this around WrestleMania. And then I will just change the champions. We'll just like, they just do this kind of stuff. So it would not shock me at all if Nikki Cross was, for 1 week, they set up this idea of this WrestleMania thing. And then ever since then, they just completely forgot about her. And that now they're in a situation where they just literally forgot that she was on the roster without a full-on, like... Because, you know, you don't need to announce that Shelton Benjamin is still on SmackDown. And you don't need to announce that Dana Brooke is still on Raw. So I think that they just kind of went, well, we don't need to change her, so we don't need to announce anything. Not realizing that she doesn't have a brand, you know?
And that could be, but I also want to get into what's left for the remaining members of Sanity. Do they have a plan for Eric Young, or is he just going to be a utility on Raw? Is there any upside to Killian Dane, seeing as the few times he did wrestle on the brand, they made him change his gear and start wearing a shirt?
Well, if we're talking outsiders, that's something that needs to be brought up because Luke Harper has requested his release, and he is potentially going to be let go from the company, but there's other reports that say that they could keep him until November. So that's up in the air. And Alexander Wolf, right afterward, put up a thing about leaving WWE. Although there's contradictory reports all over the place when it comes to him, because some say he could go down to NXT, and some say he's just leaving. Some say he's not going anywhere.
You know, and Harper, the way he worded it was much like Ty Dillinger. I don't want there to be any rumors or speculation. I asked for my release. These last 6 years have been great, but we feel, and he said we feel that it's best for WWE and myself at this time if I separate. So I think Harper's probably on his way out the door. I feel like Eric Young, and if you've watched TNA for any length of time, then you know this, can be utilized fantastically in any role. And I think there might be something big for him planned, but without Sanity, you have to completely rework the character. And that sucks.
I don't think that they're going to rework anything. I think that they honestly don't care at all. And all they're going to do is have Eric Young be Eric Young from Sanity by himself. I think he's been brought over as the heel jobber.
I mean, what does it matter? He's only going to wrestle a main event anyway, so...
Yeah, like he's going to job out to, like, you know, Aleister Black on the next episode of Raw or something. Like, it's just... I think that they look at Eric Young as the type of guy where it's like, congratulations, you finally made it to WWE. You're not good for anything, but hey, we appreciate your work. So if you're cool with losing for your entire career, then we're, you know, pat on the back.
And I just want to say this quick. I think if I'm Triple H, I'm infuriated. Triple H was so high on Sanity, and he often talked about, you know, that being something he had wanted to do for a while. And then they get up to the main roster and they're just thrown away. So is it discouraging if you're on the NXT roster to even be called up? And yeah, I know that a lot of people have been kind of saying this, but when you see stuff like this, is it just cemented now that going up to the main roster is more than likely a disappointment?
You gotta be, if you're like Johnny Gargano or something, you gotta be sitting there going, please don't move me up. Sanity it was supposed to happen with like Solomon Crow and all that, right?
I'm not sure if that's where they were going with Crow, but I know that he had that idea for a while.
And Sawyer Fulton was originally a part of it, and then they replaced him with Killian Dane. So, I mean, they were kind of like just screwed like multiple times, and I got a feeling it's not going to look all that good for Killian Dane in the future too, because he hasn't really been doing anything, and he's probably going to just be like the guy that's fed to Lars Sullivan to make him look strong. Maybe they repackage him though. I don't know. There's a chance. There's always a chance.
In the same vein of that, I do want to mention Jinder Mahal was also kind of moved over in a digital exclusive way, and then 3 weeks later was WWE champion for 6 months. So you never really know with this company.
Yeah, it's completely up in the air. And
Well, you do if they're Indian or Chinese or something along those lines. If they have some sort of racial or national connection to a group of people that they're interested in selling more merchandise or selling their product to, then there's more likely those people will be made champion. I don't think that they're too busy in, like Killian Dane's case, they're too interested in expanding reach in Northern Ireland.
well, that's another option is they can send him over to NXT UK, and they can do the same technically with Alexander Wolf, because even though that's Germany, they kind of are treating NXT UK as NXT Europe. So we've got, New Zealand, we've got, well, it's not really Europe, you know what I mean? We've got Germany, we've got, wait, Marcel Bartel's from Germany, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
Either Germany or Austria, but I think it's German.
And Fabian Eichner is Italian, if I remember correctly?
I believe so.
So they're just kind of like, it's NXT EU, but we're going to call it UK, because we're, fucking insane. And maybe that's where either or both of them end up, and maybe they could be bigger stars there, but right now they're still listed on SmackDown, and Eric Young is still listed on Raw, and Nikki Cross is still listed as ? So that's a fucked up oversight, and we don't know what's happening with Luke Harper because he clearly wants to leave, so either he leaves or they force him to stick around and they don't utilize him for months. So he's kind of a non-factor right now too, even though he's technically on the SmackDown side, so we kind of can't count him. And there's also this other big thing that, in terms of oversights and stuff, Finn Balor moves over to SmackDown with the Intercontinental Championship. And supposedly, if you believe all the rumors and all the websites and reporting and all that other kind of stuff, Samoa Joe was supposed to do something on Raw where he was going to interact with Braun Strowman. And that would have been the indication that he had joined the Raw roster, which would make sense because both mid-card titles are currently listed as being on SmackDown. So that didn't happen because he's been really sick and he was supposed to be like incapable of doing any kind of physical activity. If that's the case, why the fuck didn't they just put up a graphic? Or like have Michael Cole say, and also joining us is Samoa Joe, or put out a tweet or something.
Because I think the initial impact is going to be an attack on Braun Strowman or something to that extent. And to do anything less would be a disservice to the Joe character. Like, I think they know there's a few characters that you just can't throw up a graphic and leave it be. You can't just be, okay, by the way, Joe's here with the belt. Okay, bye. Well,
they're going to do that type of shit where it's like, these 2 days are the superstar shakeup, except for that one guy that we forgot about, and the one girl that we forgot about, and the one guy that we couldn't do, so we're just going to do those next week. And it's like, God damn it, follow your own rules, If you could put up a graphic about Eric Young moving, you could put up a graphic about the 6 other people being on SmackDown. And if you can tweet something out, you can tweet it about multiple things. And if you put something as a 2-day type thing, do it on those 2 days, Like, you set your own rules. Stop breaking them.
Well, they have that. Well, yeah, but they have no reason to change that or stick to those things because nobody cares. We do care. We don't care enough to actually do anything about it.
Oh, so backstage, somebody like Vince McMahon's just kind of like, God damn it, pal, just do it. Like, that's the philosophy of just like, fuck you, that kind of thing, which is very infuriating.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it is infuriating. There's no sort of logic connecting all of it, but Like, and I hate to always keep bringing it up because it's just so plain and obvious. I know people probably get annoyed at people suggesting it, but at the end of the day, if fans aren't going to do anything about it, and they're still going to have a constant fan base that just sits and sees this and goes, "Oh God, what the fuck are they doing? This means that none of this stuff actually matters," and then they tune in next week, then nothing's going to change.
And let me just, before anybody leaves a comment saying like, "Why are you getting so bent out of shape?" This is not the end of the world. This is not like
No, it's definitely not like a breaking point. Essentially, it's not along the lines of, "Oh, they have to do this in these 2 days because otherwise I'm leaving, cancelling my network subscription," all that sorts. It's just something that you want to have some sort of more logical basis, because you can't have logic in all of wrestling because otherwise it wouldn't be wrestling. But it's more along the lines of, if you're saying that the trades are only going to happen on these 2 days, then make the trades happen in those 2 days and don't extend it any further. And while you're at it, if you want to make the Superstar Shake-Up mean something more, maybe you shouldn't have spent the last 2 or 3 months people jumping to each brand pretty much willy-nilly.
Yeah, and don't do things like set up feuds and then decide that you want to end them with the Superstar Shake-Up without having ended the feuds ahead of time. And don't do things like put tag teams together just to break them up, or put tag teams in a new storyline just to end the storyline, or set up like this precedent of, we can put up a graphic that says Eric Young, but we can't do that on SmackDown. We're going to just announce that on Twitter afterward, and we can't even announce all of the people on the same tweet because we just forgot about them. And that's the type of stuff. Like, I mean, I'm entrenched in this, and anybody else who is doing coverage and all this other kind of stuff, like, it's so frustrating to go through a company that, like, they don't put graphics up on time. Like, I've had to make my own Superstar Shake-Up graphic because they don't have the transparent version up on the site. This is the same site that doesn't have main event listed as a part of their shows. So if you go to WWE.com, you wouldn't even know that main event is a show that exists. And they put up a graphic, for instance, about this Shield thing coming up, and it was the Shield's last chapter. And after putting the graphic up, they changed their mind to call it the Shield's final chapter and needed to put another graphic and replace it. And we've got Worlds Collide that's happened, and they taped 2 more matches that apply to the NXT versus NXT UK alumni thing, or the NXT alumni thing, and didn't air them in that section because they were like, well, we just taped them, but like, we don't want to fucking air them. It's like, well, then why'd you tape them? And like, it's just like, when you keep doing a little thing here and there that doesn't make any sense, and it's a matter of oversight. This company has thousands of employees. You shouldn't have to go to smarkoutmoment.com to figure out this information. You know what I mean? That's what infuriates me so much. Like, plan this shit out. The Superstar Shake-Up should be something that months in advance they look at the very least, when they're doing the Elimination Chamber. They should sit down, big conference table, and go, all right, here's a whiteboard with everybody's name on it on Raw, and here's a whiteboard with everybody's name on it from SmackDown, and everybody from here, and everybody from there. Let's take these names and move them around and see what we want to do, because we've got a month and a half now to wrap up everything before the shakeup. It's not that hard.
But why would you do that when, if you spend all those times doing it, and then one day a crazy old man walks in, kicks down the whiteboard, and says he's going to do it all himself?
Oh, that's the big problem here, is that, any of the work that you do with that just kind of gets thrown out the window when it's like, well, fuck you. It doesn't matter if we set up Rude and Gable for that. We're just going to split them.
It doesn't it would just, because it doesn't surprise me, like, why the creative team nowadays or other people in the company are so lazy. It's because, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because they could put as much effort as they want into it, and then the day on the show, the big man at the top just changes completely, just changes the whole show from top to tail, and all of that work is wasted. So why would they put any more effort in than they need to?
It's absolutely crazy. And if by any chance there's some WWE writers out there that are listening to this right now, if you want to anonymously reach out and just kind of vent, please do. Just shoot me a DM or something, and I'll keep your name out of it, and I'll just be like, yeah, you know what? This is how it feels from your side, because I can't tell you how frustrated I am, and if I'm not even working for the damn company, then, you know. But Samoa Joe, I'm assuming, goes over to Raw on Monday, and they just tell people to ignore the fact that it doesn't make any logical sense. There's an alternative thing that might happen, though, and that is that they've advertised that Finn Balor is defending the Intercontinental Championship on this Shield's last final chapter for the 8th time thing. They haven't said who his opponent is. So there is a possibility that Sunday night he fights, for instance, Andrade, and loses the championship, and that's how Monday Night Raw gains the Intercontinental Championship. And if that happens, Samoa Joe can't really go over to Monday Night Raw with the United States title at the very least. So he would have to either lose the championship on the same day, like Sunday night when they're doing the NXT, or not the NXT, the SmackDown live event, or they would need to just go, it doesn't fucking matter, then we'll have the United States Championship defended at Money in the Bank against the SmackDown person or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Do you guys think it's more likely Joe just hops over, Balor retains the title, or do you think that Balor drops the title and they do something fucking who knows with that whole thing?
I think if they purposely are giving you a Finn Balor Intercontinental title defense, I think there's a good chance he loses it to Andrade, and they just say, well, who knows with Joe? Well, we'll go in a different direction. Plans have changed.
I think the smart thing to do is to put Balor against a Raw guy like Andrade on the show, but I think it's just a red herring and Balor retains and Joe just appears on Monday, or when he's healthy to appear.
Well, 99% sure he's fighting a Raw person, because this is something that they had scheduled as a Raw house show. So, travel-wise, and just kind of, since it is a house show and it's not the most important thing in the world, and let's face it, the only reason that they're doing this is twofold. It's to test out their live recording equipment stuff to see if they can broadcast that, and to have their 15th final time the Shield is doing something, because they keep doing that. And now they've done the whole thing where they're like, this has to be the final time because Dean Ambrose is leaving and Rollins and Reigns are on separate rosters. So I'm leaning more towards the idea that he just retains against Andrade, since Andrade had beaten him. And that's sort of like he gets his win back, and they just swap the titles with Joe going over. And fuck you for paying any attention and realizing that it doesn't make any sense that Joe's moving after the draft, It's just one of those things.
I think I'm a little surprised that Strowman didn't go over to SmackDown instead. Just keep the belts where they are and have Joe move over, especially since with the results of it, Raw kind of seems like it's got a little bit more emphasis on the worker. Like it's got Ray and AJ and Seth. Balor might have actually fit nicely into this Raw roster. And then you move Strowman over with a guy like Roman, and that SmackDown can become kind of like the more sports entertainment oriented show.
I think that's a pretty lame assessment, if I do say so myself. Any show that has Baron Corbin on it is not the worker show, as far as I'm concerned.
That is true.
That they still have Corbin, they still have Lashley, they still have, and Strowman is not really a worker. They still have plenty of meatheads on Raw, essentially just the big guys that are still fine in the ring. It's difficult to call one brand a worker brand and a non-worker brand, because basically everyone on that roster can wrestle fairly well.
Normally, I would say that SmackDown tends to be that type of thing, but it is sort of a little bit of a healthier balance now, because
Elias is on SmackDown.
Elias is on SmackDown. He's not on the worker side of things. Lars Sullivan is on SmackDown. He's not going to be pulling out 5-star fucking flip matches and stuff. Roman Reigns has his style. It's much more the brawler side of things. You're not going to see anything crazy from Rowan, despite the fact that he's a future legend. And then you got, like, on Raw, you've got AJ Styles. You've got, like, it's sort of like there's two extremes. You got, like, AJ and Andrade and Cedric, while you've got No Way Jose and Corbin and Strowman, and, you know, like, that. I think it's balanced out, actually.
Yeah, it's quite a balanced one.
But the hardest thing to break down here is the men's division stuff. So before we even get into some of the more specifics about that, I want to kind of make it a little bit easier on us to go with the women's division, because Raw is fucked.
Raw got absolutely obliterated in terms of the women's division.
If anybody's curious, I went through, I've got everything broken down, heels and faces and strength and weaknesses and all that. The only guarantees that we have right now on Monday Night Raw are Naomi and Natalya are totally baby faces. Dana Brooke seems to be pretty firm in a babyface role right now, but she's Dana Brooke, so they just make her a utility player that fits in any kind of spot that they need. So don't be surprised at all if Dana Brooke is a heel next week and then a babyface the week afterward, or even on the same episode. They do that shit. Ronda Rousey is MIA for potentially a year, potentially forever, potentially a year and a half, potentially 4 months. It's up in the air because she's got a broken hand and she wants to get pregnant and she might want to leave. So you can't count her, really. And even if you do count her, you can't count when she will return and if she will return as a babyface or a heel. Nia Jax is firmly a heel. She's not turning face anytime soon, but she's got an injury that's put her on the shelf as well, so you can't really count her. Tamina, you don't really need to count Tamina. Alicia Fox is up in the air. She has not appeared in quite a while, and when she does return, she'll probably be a heel, but she'll probably be just like a sacrificial lamb. Zelina Vega is more of a manager than a wrestler, but maybe they start using her. That's a good get. Clearly, they're pushing Lacey Evans, and she is like the focal point. But also in the mix that are question marks: Sarah Logan, Ruby Riott, Alexa Bliss, and Sasha Banks. And the question marks here are: do you guys get the feeling that Alexa Bliss is turning face?
Yeah, she was very much a face on Monday with Sami Zayn, and I kind of feel like she's been moving in that direction, and it'll be a fresh change of pace for her character. You know, she hasn't been a face since she tried that whole glitter gimmick in NXT, so it'll be interesting.
I hope for her sake she's not turning face. That will absolutely bomb her being a babyface.
Well,
she just doesn't have the. I mean, she's a very good talker, but she's only that good talker when she's being a heel. And it's a problem that pervades most people in WWE because they write heels well and they write babyfaces terribly. And also, Alexa doesn't have. I don't think she has the likability in the way that she wrestles or in her character's demeanor to pull off being a babyface well enough.
Well, she might
be wrong.
have to be a babyface just out of default because everybody is a heel right now, except for Naomi and Natalya and Dana Brooke. And Sasha Banks is a question mark for multiple reasons because she wants to leave WWE and they might not let her, or, you know, that's kind of a question mark with that. But Bayley's getting booed because of Sasha Banks. I can't imagine that Sasha can come back and be the top babyface on Raw. It's going to take a lot to kind of get that to go in that direction. And if she turns heel, they have nobody. They can't build this division around Naomi and Natalya, and that's it. You know?
I think right now with the women, the only thing that they know, at least through Money in the Bank, is, but hey, both shows have Becky. And
Yeah.
that's what they're going with. Both shows have Becky right now, and both shows have the Iconics, so you can make whatever new matchups you want work around that. But yeah, Raw's women's division looks like shit right now.
They kind of
Becky-
need Nikki Cross to go over there as a babyface.
Becky will eventually end up on Raw. She'll drop the SmackDown Women's title at some point in the next couple of months, and she'll end up on Raw.
That wouldn't shock me at all.
And that's like fair enough. That's I don't say that's all you need, but in terms of like a babyface side of things, as long as you have the one babyface to build the entire division around, then you're pretty much set. You have like Naomi and Natalya occasionally pop in for tag team matches and the occasional feud. But as long as you have Becky, you've got like a cornerstone to set your whole division on. But in terms of just actual wrestling quality as well, the Raw side is a mixed bag. In terms of you have Becky, who's good, and Naomi, who's very hit and miss. Ruby Riot's obviously very good. Natalya's very good. Lacey Evans is a completely unproven commodity. Alexa Bliss is hit and miss and injury prone. Sarah Logan is also a bit unproven in terms of just as a single star, with the Riot Squad potentially just being broken up.
Well, that's another thing too, is they moved Liv Morgan over to SmackDown, so there is no trio Riot Squad, but
there's no Riot Squad. They've all come out on social media and basically said, we love each other, but we're all going to do our own thing now.
yeah, but they don't have any say in it. Otherwise, Tyler Breeze would be on SmackDown right now.
Well, I know for a fact that they're just going to move Sarah to either being a third wheel or a manager type role with the War Raiders. And
she's completely up in the air with that, because she could be turning babyface and going into like a separate singles thing. She could still be teaming up with Ruby Riot, and they could both be heels. For all we know, Ruby Riot could be turning babyface. Sarah Logan can be with her husband and the whole War Raiders Viking experience thing, which that is like, I mean, we're going to get into that, but that's, are they babyfaces, are they heels, whatever, so that would kind of dictate her thing. But I almost kind of feel like Sarah Logan needs to turn face, too. And then if that's the case, then you're looking at, depending on what they do with Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks, you're looking at Lacey Evans and Ruby Riot and Zelina Vega, if they want to use her, being the three heels. And Alicia Fox, Nia Jax, Ronda Rousey, and Tamina just kind of being like, like, we'll see, kind of thing. But fucking even Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks, these two hate each other. And they're going to keep them on the same roster instead of swapping Bayley and Sasha that way and moving Sasha over to SmackDown? Like, what?
I don't think that they know what they're doing with Sasha right now. Regardless of whatever is being said, I think it's a very real thing, and there's a very real possibility that Sasha just isn't around anymore.
Well, that Raw situation is you do the superstar shakeup in the hopes that you balance things out and you set up a good plan for the future, and they clearly didn't do that with Raw. SmackDown, though. SmackDown's looking pretty good. They've got Asuka, they've got Bayley, they've got Ember Moon, they've got Kairi Sane now, even though she's tagging with Asuka, which is sort of like, I don't know, you guys getting kind of like a little bit of a sort of uncomfortable racist sort of thing going on when it comes to that.
Well, what do you mean, Tony? I didn't think that they would do anything but pair her with either Io Shirai or Asuka.
Well,
yeah,
Io makes sense. They actually were a tag team. They're the Sky Pirates, but it's almost like they were like, well, we don't want to bring up Io Shirai, so let's put her with Asuka because that's the next, like, best option to just let's tag up the Japanese people together. Like,
But
well,
yeah.
is that slightly more or slightly less racist than giving them an English manager because neither of them can speak English well enough? And if you can't speak English, you can't be in WWE.
Well, let's also not forget the fact that they were like, let's replace Sasha Banks as Bailey's partner with Naomi.
With Naomi.
Like, I mean,
yeah.
some of this stuff is like, it might not be planned, but there's an undercurrent of just sort of like uneasiness, you know?
Do you think with Sasha, Naomi, and Tamina on the same brand, then Team Bad is coming back?
Oh, fuck, I hope not.
I wouldn't be against it.
Forgot about that.
They're just the new Riot Squad, except instead of being built around Ruby, they're built around Sasha.
Oh, Paige and Charlotte and Becky are all on SmackDown, so PCB, you know, the
What?
submission sister sorority cheerleader XXX or whatever they were called. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I hate the Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Paige pairing, not because of Asuka, not because of Kairi Sane, but because I don't think Paige being there makes any sense, and I think that that's going to bomb really bad, like in comparison to how good it could have been if it, you know, other circumstances were different. But I like Kairi Sane being on SmackDown. Like, that's cool. I'm a big fan of her.
I don't think it'll bomb just by the default having Asuka and Kairi Sane team together means that they're already the best team in the whole of WWE. I mean, if you was Io Shirai and Kairi Sane, it would probably be better, but the fact that they're split up and there's clearly stuff they want to do with Io Shirai in terms of the NXT Championship picture, already, but just by substituting her for Asuka, it's still a great team. It's still far better than the Iconics, and it's probably better than Bayley and Sasha Banks would be as a team, or anybody else that you could throw together at the moment on the main roster.
And you know that they're going to do this whole thing where they're going to feud with, like, not only the Iconics, but Fire and Desire, and maybe some kind of, like, mismatch kind of other sorts of tag teams down the line or something, which... Actually, you know what? That's something I want to propose to you guys. Bayley and Carmella are pretty tight. That whole, like, Baymella thing. You think that they're going to end up teaming up at some point?
Yeah, I thought that immediately in the sense of, like, even after Bayley was saying, like, I'm definitely concentrating on singles competition, my immediate thought was, okay, in 3 months' time, you're going to be teaming with Carmella and going after the titles again.
And that's a possibility, which is fine. I would like to see Bayley, you know, give some revitalized energy to her career. But I'm also for this Kairi Sane Asuka pairing, because if they win the tag titles, that means that's an excuse for Asuka to be on NXT. And I'm all for that.
There's potential for that. There's a lot of potential for some fun stuff on SmackDown for the women's division. Like, we could get feuds that are not factoring in the tag team division. Like, I mean, Kairi Sane against Charlotte Flair, Ember Moon against Charlotte Flair.
That's the one I want to see.
We can get down the line. I mean, this isn't going to be the best when it comes to in-ring action, like pure in-ring action, but when Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville split, they can still have a match together, and Sonya can turn babyface, and we could do Mandy Rose against against Ember Moon. Like, you know,
We've never really seen a feud between Charlotte Flair and Mickie James.
Yeah, Mickie is one of the most untapped resources that they have. Mickie is awesome, and they barely utilize her.
And, well, I agree that with the acquisitions they made, it's made SmackDown a whole lot stronger. The real, like, key in their success in the Superstar Shake-Up is keeping Charlotte Flair on it. Charlotte's the glue. She holds everything together. She's the top heel, arguably, like, in this current vein of form, the best wrestler that's working on the women's side at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And once the SmackDown Women's Championship is off Becky's shoulder and back into just the fold on SmackDown, she'll be perennially challenging for it, as you'd expect her to be. But there's a lot more interesting feud options for her with, let's say, Ember Moon, Mickie James, Sonya Deville, Kairi Sane, Asuka eventually again, and Bayley. And we've obviously seen Bayley and Charlotte, but we haven't seen it for a while because Bayley's never been on SmackDown. This is the first time on SmackDown, so it makes it a lot more of a good dynamic for the year ahead before the next shake-up when Charlotte probably gets moved back to Raw.
And then, of course, there's the unknown factor of Nikki Cross, because if Nikki Cross is on SmackDown, then if she's a heel or a babyface, We could get Nikki Cross Charlotte. We could get Nikki Cross Kairi Sane, Nikki Cross Ember Moon, Nikki Cross Mickey James. Like that's still like that's why like she is a much more important part of this than I think that they even knew, because she hasn't been feuding with anybody. She's had her Asuka feud, and that's it really. But SmackDown's looking great over for the women. Like they clearly win that one.
I do want to say that I'm very surprised. Maybe the biggest shock of the whole shakeup for me was that Charlotte didn't go to Raw, because they tend to like to put their bigger stars on Raw, and Charlotte is without a doubt the biggest star the women's division has. And also there's the Andrade thing, where they mostly kept the relationships on the same brand, except for that being the one notable one that isn't.
Other than Buddy Murphy and Alexa.
Which they might not even be a thing.
Really?
Yeah, they were separate at the Hall of Fame, so I figured they weren't.
Huh. They weren't even sitting next to each other?
Nope, he brought his childhood friend, and she came by herself.
No, she came with her mom, I think.
Oh, well, there you go.
Which I think she always does that, but I would have thought that they still would have been sitting down next to each other. That's, I don't know. Do you guys think Liv Morgan's gonna stay a heel and be like the jobber on that side? Because that's my feeling.
I think either she gets paired with Carmella in like this New York, New Jersey thing, which they love to do, or they keep her as a heel and she's just the heel Carmella who jobs out to the more popular babyfaces.
Isn't there potentially like some friction between those two?
I have no clue.
Kind of remember seeing something about like that she feels like Carmella's just playing a character version of Liv Morgan. Like that, like Carmella basically copies what Liv Morgan actually is, and that she doesn't really like that she's being made fun of, sort of.
Oh, well, that's very possible. What are you gonna do? It's wrestling.
Yeah,
it's a gimmick, know.
If you've got that kind of a lifestyle that you can be copied like that, then you deserve to be made fun of, kind of. Yeah, I'm feeling really confident on SmackDown's women's side.
So happy for Ember Moon.
Yeah, she needed it. Very shocked Bayley went over instead of Sasha. That floors me. Any other stuff about the women's division? Either way, do you guys think we need to address? I think I kind of knocked down everything that I had on my list.
Yeah, I think that was everything.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear SmackDown wins that one, so we can move on.
So tag teams, that's the opposite. Because SmackDown right now, they're fucked with the tag teams. They've got the Hardy Boys, which one of them has said, I don't know if I'm really going to be hanging around all that much longer. And also has said, yeah, I'll probably work for AEW at some point. And the other one retired last year just to not retire. They're looking good right now, so that's good. But that's not the most comfortable position to be in. One member of the New Day is injured, and one of them is busy with the WWE Championship, so the New Day is kind of off limits right now. Rusev and Nakamura, that team's fucking stupid. So that they need to split them up for sure. Sheamus was oddly absent on SmackDown this week, so that's kind of not sure what's going on with the bar. Heavy Machinery is a team of, look at that guy. Oh, yeah, he's got a friend. That's essentially how they've been treated. And then the Colognes.
Sheamus is injured.
Oh, he's injured? Fuck. All right, well then there goes the bar for that. And then you've got the Colognes and the Good Brothers, which the Colognes, I mean, Primo popped up one time over the past, 8 months, and the two of them didn't do anything other than Survivor Series. They are essentially just house show people, if anything, and the Good Brothers want to leave. So, those are your tag teams on SmackDown. What the hell?
Well, let's face it, Tony. Chad Gable is going to end up in a tag team at some point.
Probably with Shelton Benjamin again.
Either Shelton Benjamin or Apollo Crews or Ollie or, I don't know.
Those would be the only ones that would make any sense. Unless but then again, they could put him with R-Truth for all we know.
Yeah, but it's just like he will end up on a tag team eventually. You make an argument that obviously Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan could go into the tag team division if they want to continue that sort of things when Daniel Bryan comes back from his injury.
Oof, I hope not.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a weak side of things, but it's hard to get invested in any sort of tag team division. Yes, the ones on the Raw side are more talented, but it doesn't mean they're going to get like spotlighted anymore.
Well, just to break down the Raw side, because in comparison, they look so much better. They've got AOP, which Akam might be ready to return pretty soon, and they could be a big force to be reckoned with. The Ascension, they're jobbers, whatever. Aleister Black and Ricochet are still together, so they're going to continue probably tagging them up, but they don't have to. Fandango, when he's ready to return, we could have Breezango come back. Now, again, anytime they want to, they could just be like, yeah, by the way, Breezango is out on SmackDown now. It's WWE. You have the B team, so they're the jobbers on that side. Heath Slater and Rhino are also still a tag team, and they're jobbers, so that's covered. Hawkins and Ryder are the tag team champions. Hopefully they are not jobbers going forward. The Lucha House Party is still technically a part of Raw. The Revival still is. The Singh brothers are, and they're jobbers on the heel side. We got the Usos, which is a major, major get for the Raw tag team division. And then you've got this thing, which has to be one of the big things that's the topics of discussion. The War Raiders move over, despite being the NXT tag team champions. And despite being well known at this point as the War Raiders, and as Hanson and Rowe, and they're changed over to Eric and Ivar, the Viking Experience, who are teamed up with a heel team and get the crowd to chant war. So they are a heel team that wants the crowd to cheer with them. Their old tag team name. One half of them is named Eric, and he used to be Rowe, that's not confusing. Remember the fact that we had Eric Rowan. What the fuck?
Well, I can tell you one thing that's going to get annoying very quickly. It's Michael Cole on commentary constantly explaining that these are real Vikings.
I'm not looking forward to every fucking week being like, they live the Viking lifestyle. They eat turkey legs and, they just love the Viking experience. And what a dumb fucking name.
It's
the Viking Warriors, the Viking Raiders, War Vikings, Viking Machine even, like, the Vikings.
I've heard somebody suggest the name, calling them Valhalla.
Yeah, that would have been fucking cool.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, the name is atrocious, and hopefully it does get changed eventually when somebody realizes how royally they fucked this up.
It has to be changed.
But the bigger issue is the fact that this is a team straight out of Superstars from 1992 or 93.
Mm-hmm. Funny that you say that. Well, let me cut it right in there and say their name, from PW Insider reported, was going to be the Berserkers. So there you
go. They were going to call them the Berserkers? Like, they were literally...
Like, the Berserker from 92 with the sword and the Viking helmet?
They were going to call them
called the Berserkers, yeah. But still sounds better than the Viking experience, all cards on the table. But still, the way they're positioning them is kind of like how they positioned the Ascension, where it's like, hey, here's a gimmicky team. Even though they're badasses, we're just going to present them as a huge gimmick. And they're heels because they're big and tough. And I would argue that this is the biggest example of zero continuity that I've seen from WWE in a long time. You have your NXT Tag Team Champions called up. They don't come with the championships. They don't have their regular tag team name or their regular singles names. And then you just say, well, they're heels because we want them to be. This was the most bizarre call-up ever.
Though, Kelly, you mentioned that they feel like superstars from that era.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm getting this feeling, and I mean, I don't know. Of course, I don't know the actual person, but Vince is still looking at this through his own bubble to a point where somebody needs to kind of pop the bubble. Like, he doesn't watch NXT. I mean, Triple H has admitted this. He said he doesn't think that Vince has ever watched a full episode of NXT. And I think that he doesn't quite understand that NXT is not the way that they used to do developmental. Like, there used to be this old philosophy, and think about it, back to FCW and OVW and the Funkin' Dojo and all these other kind of developmental territories that they used to have. You used to be able to bring people up from developmental with a brand new gimmick because nobody watched that. Like, it wasn't a thing. NXT is a global brand now. People become familiarized with these characters. You can't just retcon them and expect the people to not feel like a jarring what the fuck after effect. Because back in the day, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have the ability to broadcast, whatever you're doing in the performance center type stuff. And in the old school era, nobody knew that Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine, was actually Papa Shango, unless you were like this rare little niche that read the wrestling magazines. We didn't have the social media and stuff to be able to tell you that. But now, even years ago, we had Bray Wyatt getting chanted Husky Harris because people were like, yeah, you're repackaging Husky Harris. We know that this is Husky Harris. And I get this feeling that Vince is like, I don't watch NXT, so nobody else does, so nobody's going to know that these people are that. And to a certain extent, he's kind of right, because the average person that watches WWE, they watch Monday Night Raw, and that's it. And even if you try to understand that from that perspective of like, nobody's going to know because these are just like NXT fuckers, it really shits on NXT.
Oh yeah, it absolutely does. But like you say, there's some at least reasonable understanding that the majority of people that are watching Raw don't watch NXT on a week-to-week basis. They haven't seen War Machine and Ring of Honor and New Japan and all the other places, so they're seeing these people for the first time. Even if you take all of that under board and try and like laugh off the idea that it's developmental, so it doesn't matter. The big issue is just the fact of just what their gimmick is and how they're being presented.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I say, I say it was like Superstars from '92, but this is something that Vince has tried multiple times with tag team divisions afterwards. It's like Los Boricuas and DOA and the Heartthrobs, the Highlanders, the Spirit Squad. The tag team is just where you put your really ridiculous, stupid gimmicks. And these two they're talented enough that they'll somehow manage to get through this and not lose in the entirety of their credibility. But this is probably the worst possible start you could give them in terms of just a gimmick and a name and a presentation, beyond the fact that they actually won the match. But it's just a case of, like, you can't take it seriously. I know it's wrestling as well.
Not with that fucking name.
But it's just like Ivar and Eric, and the fact that they're going to reinforce over and over again that these are actually real life Vikings and that they live the Viking lifestyle and they've got Viking blood or all this bullshit. Like, the thing they did with the War Raiders in NXT that worked was the fact that they did make reference to the fact that they have a Viking heritage, or they like to treat themselves as Vikings in terms of the case that they go from continent to continent and conquer the tag team divisions they're faced with. And so that's a way of like referencing it, but also make it akin to the fact that they're not actually Vikings, they're wrestlers and they wrestle, but they have this sort of like connection to it, which is cool. And this is basically saying this has no nuance or distinction regarding it. It's clear cut. These two dressed as Vikings, so clearly they are Vikings, and so we're going to treat them as Vikings.
It's very much, you are all idiots, and we need to beat you in the head with this because you're going to be too stupid to understand it otherwise.
This is too old.
We have to call them the Viking experience. out of all things. Like, we need to remind you each and every week, they think that they are Vikings and they do whatever. That's why they're called the Viking experience and the Viking this and the Viking that. And it's like, it's this very, like, let's appeal to the idiot. And you know what it is? It's No Child Left Behind. It's the No Child Left Behind of fucking wrestling. It's, you're too stupid. You've got some problems. You can't figure this stuff out on your own. So we're just gonna dumb everything down to make everything for you. And it's just, God, I hate it so much. Because
Do you think if Sarah Logan does end up joining these two, they're going to change her name to like Gwenda or Brunhilde or something along those lines?
I made that joke. Oh, as soon as I saw them, I made that joke because I'm like, all right, she's got a name of Sarah Logan now. They're just gonna call her Gunhilda or something, and
it would not shock me at all.
off
And
she
you know what?
goes.
They wouldn't even have the nuance to do something where they could get away with that if they did something like she is hanging out with them and she's like, I like this Viking lifestyle. I'm going to rechristen myself and give myself a Viking name. They're not even going to do that. They're just going to flat out call her some dumb name one random night.
I disagree. I totally think that you're going to get a couple of vignettes of them ingratiating her into the Viking experience and giving her, she's going to be rechristened as whatever the fucking name is.
The Viking experience.
I mean, it's going to be even worse along the lines of, like, when they cut promos, if they're given promo time, are they going to have to put on Norwegian accents?
Oh, God, I hope not.
Because I don't know if they can do that.
I'm Olaf.
Yeah. There was this thing that happened earlier today, which is Lana's Snapchat had some kind of either a potential leak or somebody had hacked it and posted some kind of I don't know, it was like a masturbation video or something. I don't know. I didn't see the thing. I don't follow her on Snapchat. And I'm just thinking, when you said that they're going to ingratiate her in the Viking experience, I'm like, God, I don't want to see the Snapchat that leaks from Raw of him being like, hey, baby, you want to experience the Viking experience? You know, like, it's such a dumb fucking name. They couldn't have just called them the Vikings. Or, like, if they wanted to own the name, call them, like, the Red Vikings, you know? Or something, and just call them, like, I mean, you can't call them Eric the Red, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, they could do shit like that. Like, it's not that difficult. That's what I keep having to use this phrase for like the past year. It's not that fucking hard. So nobody backstage heard the Viking experience and laughed and said, we can't fucking do that. Like, I really hope on the next Something to Wrestle that Conrad Thompson puts Bruce Pritchard out there and goes, listen, dude, what the fuck's up with the Viking experience? And if he just goes like, yeah, I don't know, Vince thought it was a good idea and we can't say no. Like, there needs to be a clarification behind that. And they need to change it next week. They can't be the Viking experience going forward.
So in my head, I just see Vince McMahon watching NXT TakeOver New York for 5 seconds. And he watches the entrance of the War Raiders. And he goes, I love it. That's great. That's the real Viking experience. And walked away for the rest of the show. And he went and he said, Hunter, I want the Viking experience. Who? The War Raiders? That's what I said, the Viking experience. And there we have it.
It has to be. He tuned in because it was during a time frame where he was actually paying attention to it for the first time in a while, and they had a great match, and he was just like, wow, this is really fucking cool. We should bring them up on Raw. And Triple H and company were probably like, well, they're kind of like the tag team champions. And he's like, I don't fucking care. And then they're like, okay, well, we'll try to figure it out. And he goes, well, we need the Viking experience on Raw. And nobody just thinks that he's actually being serious. And they're like, yeah, well, they could bring the whole Viking gimmick. And he's like, no, we need the Viking experience on Raw. And they're like, yeah, we get it. The War Raiders will come over. And he's like, no. We need, quote, the Viking experience. Come on, it'll be like a goddamn Disney ride. Sign up for the, like, I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon 3 yet. I had planned on watching that pretty soon, and I don't want to watch it now because I'm going to think the Viking experience the whole time. This is the stupidest fucking move out of everything that they did in the entire thing. And it's not stupid because of War Raiders. They are fucking talented. They are great. You didn't need to change their names. You didn't need to change their singles names. Who knows if they're heels? If they are, stop getting them to chant with the crowd. Stop getting them to chant their previous name, too. Like, that makes no sense. It's just,
You think we get something stupid like instead of it's boss time, it's time to hunt or something, just like every Monday.
If they do that, then it's going to be confusing because they have the hunt over on NXT UK.
Well, as long as they don't make any references to rape and pillage, then I'm sure that we're fine.
You couldn't even call him like Eric the Viking and Ivar the Viking and call them like.
I thought you were going to say something like you could call him Eric the Rapist and Ivar,
God, no.
Ivar the Pillager instead.
Who won the Royal Rumble this year? Eric the Rapist.
Jeez. Well, that alone, like WWE tries to make it a point all the time to talk about how larger than life that they are and how like for somebody like Vince McMahon who clearly has an issue with names and is like Mustafa Ali can't be Mustafa Ali anymore. He has to be Mustafa. And Andrade Cien Almas, even though we say that in its goddamn entrance, he can't be that anymore. He has to be Andrade and all this. You're going through the list of the superstars and you're, a PR person. Say you're the dude doing the voiceover who it's like, hey, WWE Universe, coming up soon at Wildwood, we're going to have WWE superstar Braun Strowman and AJ Styles is in action and Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre and Eric. And it's like, and Eric? Eric? Okay, well, is he going to be joined by Phil and WWE legend Steve? Like, how fucking lame is that? Oh, there's Ricochet, the one and only Ricochet, and there's the A-lister, The Miz, and there's, I don't know what you'd fucking call the guy at this point, but like, the glorious Bobby Roode, and Eric. God, it's stupid. I hate it so much. I hate it with a passion. And this is gonna be my new, my new thing.
I find it quite amazing that, like, across both the Raw and SmackDown brand, there's 3 people called Eric, or at least have the name Eric on them, as their ring name.
Eric Young, Eric, and Eric Rowan, who is just Rowan, and
it's
that makes it
such a
confusing
weird
with
name.
Row.
It's such a weird name that would be the one you have multiple versions of.
That's so weird.
But
and if they got like, do you think that part of it was that he thought Row would be confusing with Rowan?
I'd be surprised if anything went into his thought process other than the fact of we're going to call these people the Viking Experience. They have to have Viking names. And then they just did a Google search for common Viking names and gave them the first 2 on the list.
It's so strange that he is Eric, too. Eric, formerly known as Row, and then there's Eric Rowan, formerly known as Eric Rowan. But, like, it's not even the opposite. Like, Hansen became Eric, It's almost like it's a fucking joke. Like, we're going to tune in the Raw next week, and Bray Wyatt's going to be Way Bryant. And or something like that, they're just gonna do these kind of things to like make themselves giggle. I don't know. I hate it.
As long as someone's having fun.
So the Viking Express would have been a fucking better name. The Vikings themselves, whatever. Let's see if they understand the backlash and that they change it next week, and hopefully that'll be the major hot tag of like, War Raiders are back and, whatever. I don't know. But let's talk about singles. The men's singles division that can incorporate tag teams. There's so many variables when it comes to heel and face turns. There's so many, like, who do they push? Who do they not push? All this other kind of stuff. But ran down the list before. I'm not going to read them all over. Both Raw and SmackDown are looking pretty good. Top to bottom, essentially, if you look at Monday Night Raw, they've got Seth Rollins as the champion. And your backup options for main event talent on the babyface side are AJ Styles, Braun Strowman, Rey Mysterio, The Miz, and then to a certain extent, Aleister Black and Ricochet. Because they're on like that cusp where they're a tag team right now. They could be mid-carders, they could be upper mid-carders, they could eventually be main eventers. They're kind of in the mix there. You've also got Cedric Alexander. So he's going to be a mid-carder for sure. I mean, we can all agree on that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, they're not pushing him upper mid-card yet. And there's a possibility that maybe Dolph Ziggler comes back and they put him in a babyface role. That's sort of just, who knows. Titus O'Neil's a jobber. He's not going to go anywhere with that. Bray Wyatt's a question mark, but he seems more like a heel. I'm feeling confident about the babyface side. You know, Rollins and AJ have a different style from Braun Strowman. So that's kind of cool that Strowman can be like the big powerhouse. And there's a better chance now that he wins the Universal title than ever before. Because you didn't fucking put the title on him in Crown Jewel, idiots. And that's kind of neat that he's kind of like the de facto number 3. And The Miz has a chance to be in that kind of spot too. And he wrestles a different style. And Rey Mysterio is that like hover between the upper mid-card, main event, mid-card kind of thing. He can do what he does. And, you know, how you guys feeling about the baby faces on Raw?
Feel pretty good. I think Raw has a great list of baby faces. I'm interested to see what AJ ends up doing and if they end up actually turning him heel because they end up going, hey, we want Rollins and AJ to fight at SummerSlam. But, you know, they both can't be baby faces because somebody has to be a bad guy. And I feel like AJ would end up being that guy. And I like Rey being back on Raw, even though I feel like he didn't get enough time on SmackDown. But again, Raw is their A show, and Rey Mysterio is a guy who's so synonymous with WWE for some people that it'll be a good boost to have Rey on Raw. And the best thing I think is it gives Rollins some fresh matches once he gets out of Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre. Hell.
Yeah, I think that it's good to have AJ, who's been on SmackDown the entire time since the brand split, come back to Raw. I know obviously he's got such a firm connotation with SmackDown being the house that he built, but it works out now that he can come onto Raw and we can finally have that extended feud that a lot of people have been waiting for between AJ Styles and Seth Rollins over a championship. The Miz makes sense as babyface as long as this lasts, and it's going well at the moment, so you might as well keep the ball rolling. Rey Mysterio is somebody you could throw in at any level and will do a good job for you. Yeah, and then Braun Strowman is probably more likely to win the title at some point, but it seems odd. Like I don't know how the dynamic between AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, and Braun Strowman as your top 3 baby faces is really going to work. I mean, obviously, the idea if Samoa Joe does eventually go over to Monday Night Raw, you'd have him and Braun Strowman battling over the United States Championship for a while, so that keeps Braun Strowman out of the main title picture. And assuming he'll eventually go back in, but in terms of the heel side, outside of Samoa Joe and Drew McIntyre, I don't really see where the big, like, your big main event heel is coming from.
Well, the good thing is they have Andrade, so he's going to be somebody that they can put a mid-card title on, or they can start to build towards the upper mid-card and whatever. Like, we can get a good Andrade versus Seth Rollins feud down the line, or Andrade versus Styles. Like, they could be good feuds. And Sami Zayn is picking up some steam, so he can be a good source to tap into for that. But it is a little bit underwhelming that they still have Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre all together.
Yeah, that's depressing.
And technically speaking, Jinder Mahal is a former WWE champion. They can at any point put him in the mid card and try to act like that's a big deal.
I mean, Bray Wyatt could come back and be pushed straight to the main event.
He probably is going to be put in that kind of a role and feud with Seth Rollins for a little bit.
And Raw still has Brock Lesnar.
Technically they do, yeah. Which I don't want to see it, but Again, I don't get what I want.
And Bobby Roode is now single star.
Bobby Roode's a single star. Dolph Ziggler can always come back as a heel or a babyface. Even though they seem to be completely against the idea, they could push EC3 at some point. Technically speaking, they were trying to do something new with Mojo Rawley, although that's not going to work. And they could, again, technically speaking, do something with Eric Young, but more than likely he's just going to be a jobber on the heel side.
Look, just think like in terms of like slightly longer term. I mean, this Miz babyface run is going to lose steam eventually, and he's going to turn heel again
at some point.
So there's definitely options in there, but I don't. The only two that really scream like top level main event. I mean, obviously you can build Andrade up, but in terms of his booking so far, it's been very like a mixed bag for him. The only two that really scream like, okay, this is a top heel that can go up against Seth Rollins or AJ Styles or Braun Strowman for the title, or Drew McIntyre and Samoa Joe. And those two are fine. Those two are great to have in those roles, but it's just a case of that's really kind of it, because all the other ones are a bit tattered.
I'm looking forward to the hopeful rebuilding of Bobby Roode, because this is a guy that we know can hang in the main event scene if given the chance. It's just that WWE decided not to utilize him in that way. So if they build him up right, he can be a major player. And yeah, I think the biggest disappointment for me is that not only are Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley still on the same brand, but they're still being lumped as a unit for some reason, when all three would be better off on their own. Baron Corbin would be better off on some other show. I'm really not looking forward to seeing Corbin versus Seth Rollins for the Universal title. But everybody else, Lashley can go when he wants to. You know, McIntyre is always good. Joe is always good. Rude, I feel, is always good. It's a matter of you need to position them to where they don't feel like jokes. You know, Joe was in the WWE Championship picture for like 4 months last year, and yet it felt like such a fart in church.
There's a lot of potential for if they use the actual potential.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, if they give us AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe again, it's just a rehash of what we've seen before, then there's no point. But if we get, like, for instance, Braun Strowman versus Joe, that could be fun. Ricochet versus Andrade, that could be great. Aleister Black against Drew McIntyre could be really cool. EC3 against The Miz could be a great feud, promo-wise even. Rollins against Styles. Cedric Alexander against, I don't know, Andrade. Like, you know, there's lots of possibilities. So whether it's like Rey Mysterio getting the mix with somebody, or even somebody like Aleister Black or Ricochet or whatever, they've got a lot of options, and it's just a matter of if they position these people right. If they look at EC3 and a couple other people as just like, these guys are a waste, they're going to ruin them. Bobby Roode, if they don't push him well enough, that kind of thing. SmackDown, for anybody who's interested, has some good pairings that can happen up in the future. Our main event babyface scene is essentially going to be Roman Reigns, Kofi Kingston, Finn Balor, and Kevin Owens. And then coming up the rear a little bit there is Apollo Crews and Ali as the two main mid-carders. And maybe Chad Gable becomes a mid-carder again. Maybe he's a babyface. Maybe they continue to push R-Truth, but he's kind of not somebody we can bank on 100%. And Sin Cara, they might give him more of a push, but I don't think that that's really going to matter.
And right now you have the Hardys as a team, but at any point Jeff Hardy is a main event singles guy.
At least upper mid-card. So that's a possibility. And then that butchers the tag team division more, but, they're fucking with that anyway. The heel side has quite a bit. They've got Randy Orton. They've got Daniel Bryan, depending on his status. Buddy Murphy is going to be a solid mid-carder there. Elias, I'll get back on Elias. They do have Killian Dane. He's going to get sacrificed to Lars Sullivan, who's going to be a big deal, which I'm not fucking interested in seeing the next battle of Vladimir Kozlov. Technically speaking, we have Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura. We do still have Rowan, even though he's not really, doing his thing. And Shelton Benjamin's a good utility player, so I'm worried about Elias. I think that you had 3 hours of Raw, and sometimes you still couldn't get to Elias. And when you've got SmackDown with only 2 hours, he's going to be screwed, and they're going to move him over to Raw within 2 months.
I think they'll still find time to do the Elias thing. I think it's more useful for Elias to be on SmackDown because SmackDown has, even though both sides have some really good talent on it, I think Elias needs to be in an environment which maybe associates more with work rate than Raw side does. Because even though he's more of a showy character, this could be an opportunity for him to have some longer matches. Because even though Raw has 3 hours to work with, you typically get the longer, more comprehensive matches on SmackDown. And Elias can get a few more reps in that way. But I do agree that it could be an issue, just along the lines of the amount of time that his stuff takes up. But if they back him as much as they seem to, then they'll give him the opportunity to fill that space.
I'm worried that SmackDown for the next 4 months is going to be, let's take 15 minutes for Elias, 15 minutes for Lars Sullivan to beat down R-Truth or whoever, and a 20-minute segment for the women's division, and then our main event. Over and over and over and over again.
Oh, I kind of got the impression of, let's give an hour to the rest of the roster, and let's give an hour to Roman Reigns. That's kind of the impression that I took at the end of that show.
I think that we're going to get lots of 6-man tag matches. It's going to be like Roman Reigns and Finn Balor and Kevin Owens against Lars Sullivan and Randy Orton and Elias, like 14 times over the next 2 months.
So am I wrong? And as soon as I saw Roman at the end of the show, I went, okay, Roman and Lars at SummerSlam, WWE Championship at some point.
Would not be shocked at all.
Oh, maybe we wouldn't say SummerSlam, maybe by Survivor Series, that's probably happening. But I don't know what the whole. I mean, I understand the negativity. So like this, Lars Sullivan took a while to get here, a lot longer than he should have done. I don't see what the negativity is around him. He's a big man, and he wrestles in a certain style, but he's very good at that style. I don't recall him having a bad match in NXT. He might have had some like duller matches than others, but I don't recall ever seeing a bad match that Lars Sullivan was ever in.
My issue is I've never been wowed by him, and I don't feel like going on the 12-month journey of them, for lack of a better word, cramming him down my throat, telling me that he is incredibly important and better than everybody, the same way that they did with Kali, and the same way that they did with Kozlov, and the same way that they did with Rusev, and the same way that they did with everybody like that.
But Tony, they did the same thing with Braun Strowman.
Yeah, and I didn't really dig Braun Strowman as much until well beyond that when he started to be a better character.
Yeah,
so you're saying if Lars Sullivan flips a few trucks, you'll feel better?
Maybe.
It takes a while. Like some of these characters are often very hit or miss in terms of like the big monster heel, and it might be an experiment that proves not worth going on with. But he's shown enough ability in his time at NXT that I'm gonna give it an opportunity.
You know, I'm gonna disagree with Tony on Lars. I like Lars. I do have to say I felt what he's feeling, but I actually thought that initially when I first saw them push Roman after the Shield. I said, I've seen this with Ryback. I've seen this countless times. I saw it with Lashley. You know, I wasn't really feeling Roman Reigns until we got to the Royal Rumble, and they made it clear, okay, we're going with him. He's our guy going forward.
And I appreciate the fact that he's not on the same brand as Braun Strowman.
Yeah, me too.
Because you should
That's
only
one
have,
positive.
You should have one monster per show.
And for that matter, I like that he's hopefully not on the same brand as Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, because Brock Lesnar would just steamroll him and kill his momentum dead.
No, I'm tired of seeing Roman Reigns.
Oh no, I mean that in the same way that Triple H and The Undertaker killed Cos.
Yeah,
Even though he definitely didn't deserve to be anywhere near the main event in terms of his charisma or anything like that. But it's just a case of Lars at least has a lot of small people that he can have fun matches and just do fun destruction jobs over for the next couple of months before he starts getting into the real feuds with your Roman Reigns, your Kofi Kingstons, your people of that sort of ilk.
So, I mean, as far as like possible feuds, that could be a lot of fun. Like, they could do some of these things like Kevin Owens, Randy Orton. They could do Finn Balor against Finn Balor, Randy Orton. Like, they haven't even done a feud really.
Balor and Bryan.
Balor and Bryan could be fantastic. Buddy Murphy can have a really good match with a lot of different people. I think he's like a sleeper pick. And even Apollo Crews could get some good shit going on there with, you know, Rusev or, you know, whoever. But all this kind of stuff is like so up in the air and we don't really know. And even though this is, you know, let's try to take the crystal ball and make it work extra hard, I'm going to go around different championships and I want to see what you guys have to say as far as potential next champions, because I have to update my list later on, and I want to kind of go back to this a little bit later once we start getting new champions and see if we had a completely different wrong idea of like where they'd be going. So Seth Rollins is holding the Universal title. You're looking at the roster right now. Who do you think is going to be the next champion? I'm leaning towards Drew McIntyre.
I'd go with Drew McIntyre as well. I think he's the most fit for the purpose right now.
I would say AJ Styles.
We've got the tag team titles on Raw. They are the Major Bros, or whatever they're going to call them. So there's Viking Experience, the Usos, AOP. Revival could win it back. I'm assuming Viking Experience.
Yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, Viking Experience.
And then they lose it to the Usos.
Eventually, yeah.
And then the Usos lose it to AOP or something.
Yeah.
The Becky Lynch side of things on the Monday Night Raw Women's Championship. Lacey Evans is the one and only option, right?
Well, that's
other than Sasha, if they want to give her that.
Well, I think the Lacey Evans thing will just be a one-more feud that ends at Money in the Bank and then completely fizzles out.
Who do you think instead?
Ronda Rousey.
You think she holds the belt the entire year?
She'll hold it until Ronda Rousey is ready to come back. I can imagine that.
I'm going to give my answer for both the Raw and SmackDown, because it depends on whoever the company feels like using this for, but I think Becky Lynch gets cashed in on and loses both championships in one night.
So who does she lose to, though?
I'm going to say Alexa Bliss and Ember Moon.
Oh, on the SmackDown Women's Championship side, Ember Moon's trying to gun for it. Bayley's trying to gun for it. I think that eventually, when push comes to shove, she's going to lose it probably to Mandy Rose. I don't know why I'm feeling that, but that's what I'm kind of feeling. Although Charlotte Flair is kind of an easy option.
You know what? Now that you say that, though, I can see Mandy being the one to win the briefcase and cash it in. So perhaps Mandy will be the next SmackDown Women's Champion. Yeah, I'll go with Mandy.
I'm thinking a heel Bayley.
Good chance.
I like that.
The SmackDown Tag Team Championship is currently on the Hardy Boys, and they have really no real options, so I don't think that they have the slightest idea.
You should probably go with Rusev and Nakamura is probably the safest bet right now.
Fuck it, I'm going to say the Undisputed Era.
You know, I'm honest to God, drawing a blank. I don't see them putting those titles on Rusev and Nakamura at this point. I think maybe we get some thrown together tag team that we don't even know yet.
I would be more willing to think the Good Brothers win than Rusev and Nakamura.
You know what? Depending on how and I hope they don't do this for too long, but depending on how they want to drag this out, Kevin Owens and Xavier Woods.
Maybe. And the WWE Championship is on Kofi Kingston. And I totally forgot about the mid-card titles. I just realized that, but we'll circle back around with that. Actually, let's do that now, then we'll end up on Kofi. United States titles on Samoa Joe. That's on SmackDown technically right now. So just going to Strowman.
I would assume so.
I mean, Strowman will be the next one to feud for it. Depends whether he's the one that actually ends up winning it. I would say that it's probably likely that it's Braun Strowman, but if it's not Braun Strowman, I'd probably say it's going to end up on The Miz.
And Intercontinental title is Finn Balor. I think that is probably going to stay on SmackDown, and that one is either going to go to Lars Sullivan or that they're going to put that on Elias.
I'm going to live my dreams here, Tony, and say Buddy Murphy.
It's going to end up on Randy Orton.
Finally, the Kofi Kingston WWE Championship reign has to end at some point, and I am crossing my fingers that it's not Lars Sullivan.
It's going to end up on Randy Orton. No, actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, it makes so much sense to have Randy Orton be the person to feud and take Kofi Kingston's title, just like he took his opportunities away all those years ago.
It's
just the final fuck you from Randy Orton to the entire world.
I'd rather see Randy beat Kofi for the WWE title than see Randy beat Finn Balor and be a mid-card champion. But I will say I think Lars beats Kofi.
I'm going to change my way around a little bit. I'm going to change to Randy Orton wins the WWE Championship, and then he's the one that drops it to Roman Reigns eventually. And then I'd probably say for the Intercontinental one, either Elias or... I mean, we don't know. We don't know where Bray Wyatt's turning up. Daniel Bryan, actually. Daniel Bryan and Finn Balor feuding over the Intercontinental sounds good to me.
So I'm going to be honest. I think if they don't go with Lars, or even if they do, and that ends at SummerSlam for Roman, Bray Wyatt just pops up and knocks out Roman Reigns, and he'll get the "you may be stronger than cancer, but you can't beat me."
Gotta hope not. So that's the Superstar shakeup as far as I'm concerned, and all of my notes and all the other kind of stuff, because we can talk about this for the end of days and still be completely in the dark of what the hell's going on. But is there anything else you guys want to round out?
I'd just say that it's an overall, there's plenty of possibility there. So whether it is capitalized on or not depends, but I'm excited to be watching. Like SmackDown in particular, I think has a lot of really good in-ring talent right now. And so it should lead to plenty of good feuds and matches, hopefully.
Yeah, as long as they continue to utilize the players they have, it should be good. And who knows, this might all be leading to Daniel Bryan versus Killian Dane at WrestleMania for the WWE title. You just never know. Like, that's the nature of WWE.
Or half the roster hands in their release by the end of the month or whatever.
Well, I think that happens by December. Half the roster will be gone.
We also don't know if the brand split is ending with Clash of Champions in October and the whole Fox thing. We don't know if people are turning heel and face. We don't know if Samoa Joe is going to Raw. We don't know where Nikki Cross is going. It's a complete mess with a lot of potential outside of Raw's women's division and SmackDown's tag team division. Those two are fucked. But everything else, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see and hope for the best.
Basically, the only thing we know for sure when watching these programs is that at some point on USA, a Little Lungs in the Great Big World commercial will air, and that'll upset Tony.
Fucking hate that commercial. that stupid day drinking kind of thing, and somewhere on the beach. Vaping is much better than.
Yeah, sorry. American commercials suck.
Terrible. Anyway, I want to know what everybody else has to say about this. So if you are listening to this on YouTube, drop a comment below and tell us what you think. And while you're doing that, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications, because the next couple of things that are going to be coming your way are going to be the hot tags and then the mailbag for this month coming up next week. So send in those mailbag questions while you can. If you're on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or Google Play or Podbean or Anchor or any of the other kind of places that you listen to this on just the audio only version, give us some kind of a star rating, like 5 stars or whatever, hopefully, and leave a comment on the page on smarkoutmoment.com itself. You could also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. You can pick up some merchandise over at TeePublic and Redbubble, including the most recent SmarkOutMoment version of the logo based off of the Superstar Shakeup itself. We've got the Patreon if you want to donate money that way and help us keep the lights on with some of the spare change that you've got, because we've got tiers from $1 to, I don't know, however much. And there's also some other stuff that's happening on smarkoutmoment.com to be aware of, so keep checking out the website. Check out the stuff I've got on eWrestling News and Bleacher Report and fanboysanonymous.com, and follow all the stuff on Fanboys, like the Facebook, the Twitter, the YouTube, and so on and so forth there. Patreon, Redbubble, TeePublic, etc. And follow me personally at Tony Mango and A Mango Tree and all the other kind of things like that. So just start clicking around and you will find tons of stuff on my side of things. Far too many fucking things. We are not going to be doing a post show for Worlds Collide tonight. We are not going to be doing a post show for the Shield's final chapter, but there will be stuff on smarkoutmoment.com based off of that and possibly elsewhere. So somewhere down the line, whether it's the hot tags or not, we'll be breaking it down. So stay tuned for that as well. I'm going to pass this around. Give the talking stick to Callum. Anything you want to toss out?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out all the weekly articles, including the power rankings and all the other stuff we've got going on smallcountmoment.com. And 2001 A Wrestling Odyssey. You can already check out episodes we've done for January, February, March, and the special on WrestleMania X7. And hopefully sometime next week we'll be recording the April edition, so that'll be coming to you by the end of April at the very latest. So stay tuned and we'll let you know when that's come out, and pass it over to Rob.
All right, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFelice. You can check out all the stuff I have on eWrestling News. You can check out Time Killer Apparel. That is my clothing brand. And you can check out WrestleZone.com. I'm doing stuff on their Facebook occasionally, and they're good people. So that's it.
Alrighty, everybody, that's going to do us in for this main event for this week of Smack Talk. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for everything else that's going on. We will see you next time. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.